Grand Blanc Watchdogs podcast. I'm your co-host, Lonnie Adkins.
And I'm Monica Shapiro, former candidate for Grand Blanc Township supervisor. Lonnie ran for trustee with me in the last election because we both believe the township could be better.
All right, this parks episode is the one we planned to run before we realized that the millage vote was coming up that very week. So we had to rush and scramble and do a vote no on parks millage before we got this one out. This one covers some of the same territory, but in a slightly different way that I hope you'll all find entertaining.
Okay, so let's talk Grand Blanc. Monica, what do you have?
All parks. Let's talk parks. And it's timely because we all got the postcard in the mail about the upcoming millage.
Millage.
Yeah, we have to have a millage because, our general fund is stretched right to the breaking point. Week in, week out, they pay right up what they have in the budget. It's all accounted for. There is not a penny to spare. So if we want one of these luxuries like parks, that's something you've got to pony up for, folks, And it's only a little bit. It's like $9 more a month or something, they say.
It drives me crazy, Monica, because if it's subsidizing Oakland County with a sewer pipe or something, we just rush in, sign the paperwork, issue the debt. But that amount of debt, you realize just 2 or 3% of that total debt we could have put into the park and made it so much more wonderful. But the park, the local officials take the position that the park, if it's not generating revenue, then it's like...
It's not our business.
It's not our business. And
they palm it off.
Good government at a local level should know that there are certain things that just cost you money. They're not there to create revenue.
No. And
police, water department, your parks, they are in addition to the community. We're already funding it. We expect it. But it's like if it's not generating revenue or we can't pass another millage, then we don't deserve it.
They're trying to sort of abdicate their responsibility as elected officials to their constituents' quality of life, to the public, to what this town could be.
I think they hope the millage fails, if you ask me. Scott and Dennis can say, well, we tried. The people didn't want these big grand plans.
The people didn't want these things.
But the people do want them. They're already paying them. There's money in the general fund. Stop issuing debt for things that don't improve the quality of life.
We're paying for with our taxes already. They try to disguise the fact that your taxes go up and some of that money goes into the general fund. Your assessment goes up, your taxes go up, irrespective of millages. Your overall tax rate that you pay every time they redo your assessment, it goes up. So all of us are paying higher taxes.
Pretty much 5% a year since Scott Bennett has been in office. So every year, 5% more gets tacked on. And they like to say only 16% stays in the township general fund. Well, 16% of a 40% increase over 8 years goes into the general fund. So if the whole pie is getting bigger, our 16% piece is also getting bigger. That math seems to escape them, or they hope it'll escape us. They're going to introduce the millage again in November. You'll be hearing that we told you there was plenty of money and no need for a millage. And maybe we are wrong about that, although if you watch enough meetings and you watch enough big spending happening week in, week out, somehow they fill up every inch of the general fund with a software package here and a new car for the code enforcement people there. They seem to be spending money like water, but okay, supposing it is true that they don't have the kind of money that we'd need to really adequately support our parks. Many communities do pass millages, even as much as 1 mill, which we passed for our fire department, we passed for our police department. Maybe we don't understand the finances well enough to say that they have the money. But what we can understand from outside here, from living in the community and reading the postcard they sent to try to persuade us to vote for this thing, what we can see is that this administration doesn't have a plan to use this millage for what we actually hope and want and are consistently being told there's not enough money for. Here they're saying that we can get a new indoor-outdoor pavilion. That must cost as much as the splash pad, but the splash pad still gets relegated to possibilities. They do not listen to the public. The public has said loud and clear that they want that thing replaced. And we do know that if they just treat the water, they can have it tomorrow. But they're holding out because they want the park to pay into their water supply, their water fees.
You know, funny thing is, that board created a code enforcement department with one vote. That department cost money, and they say that it's there for beautification of the community, to regulate everything from
collect
vehicle
fines and antagonize the community.
But yet,
it doesn't benefit the community.
It doesn't benefit the community, but the parks do, and they have talked about the parks for 3, 4, 5 years.
Yes.
But yet with one vote, you create a whole department, a whole new level of expenses by creating code enforcement, and it does nothing but just pit the community against one another.
Yes.
So,
perfect example, when there was a family whose house burned down, and days later they got an angry letter from code enforcement saying they better clean up that site. And it was pretty, Mr. Bennett said something in the paper apologizing that it was just an automatic thing that went out, but that tells you what code enforcement's there for.
why are we talking about parks for years? Why can't they just do something, Monica?
Why?
Speechless.
Yeah, I am speechless.
Is it lack of vision or lack of love for the park?
They have abdicated their responsibility to the community in so many ways, and parks are a big part of it. The rumor was that a lot of qualified people backed off from even wanting to
apply for the job of parks director
because they knew they would have to work with, that it would be a very hard place to work because they weren't supporting parks. They don't support parks. They would just, hide behind, we don't have the money, it's not making money. Look at us, we're doing all this revenue producing thing, we're bringing in a plastics factory. They had all those things that they were doing, and they wouldn't support parks. So you knew you'd be on your own.
So they took, if there's not a grant, or you can't generate money from renting the fields or renting the
Enough money
pavilions,
to pave the thing.
then it's like, well, there you go, community.
It's the poor orphan of our community. What parks are low on our list.
I know you've been very involved. Talked about this park.
It only came to my attention when I decided I was going to run, and I sat down with John Creasey.
John, the mayor of the city of Grand Blanc, yep.
And he said, we're going to get this, Jewell. We are not going to rest. We are going to get that park. And Grand Blanc has 100 acres right connected to it. And it could be a 230-acre grand park in the center of our two communities. And his eyes were lighting up, and my eyes were lighting up, and I was like, oh my! I actually had to get converted because I was so sort of brainwashed by Scott and Dennis that I thought that. I said, really, but parks, they can't afford them. It's so hard. We have to. And he said, no, that's your fiduciary duty. That's what you're supposed to do as a community. You're supposed to make parks a priority. So anyway, he said we were underserved by parks. And I looked up all the surveying and found out who owned it, and 100 acres of a defunct golf course. It has little trails and nice plantings underneath the overgrowth. It's a reasonable piece of property, but it backs up to the Jewell that has been sitting vacant for all this time. So 2 vacant golf courses. And I found an article about, and I put it up. It was one of my best performing things on LinkedIn. Communities are making great parks out of bankrupt golf courses instead of just going into residential with that land. So in the center, off McCandlish, there's an entry, and off Perry, there's an entry. So a whole bunch of residents live all around this 230-acre park. And I learned about it to the extent that I saw that it was a possibility. And not only a possibility, but a crucial possibility, something that could really transform our sense of community, to have a park there, a 230-acre park there. And it seemed essential to me.
So I asked our head of planning, or planning manager that they call him, has anybody at the township thought about making this old golf course into a park? And he said, no, that was never on our radar. And that made me feel bad about the township, that something this good was never on their radar. What are they doing?
You know, I just came back from New York City. The visionaries that made sure that Central Park would always be there, I had a wedding there, and I had out-of-town people come and stay, and the thing I made them come see was Central Park. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing that they did for the public, and it's amazing. Well, very pricey to live on it. It becomes desirable. It raises the property values of everyone who surrounds.
That special piece of property that the township could preserve and put a farmer's market and put a pavilion there that people could use, put a nature preserve that we can use for ecology students. It's right by the middle school. And when our property values go up, our tax base also goes up. So even though the park isn't directly providing revenue, improving the property values in the township is the best way that we can, for $1.5 million maybe of investment, we get tremendous return that keeps on giving. But that's not on our radar. That's not on Mr. Bennett's radar. He said we couldn't afford it. We can't afford the parks we have. He tried to float a millage. Even in the millage, he wasn't saying that this was something that was important to him. Go figure. But anyway, back at the city, we've got Mayor John Creasey.
He said, I am going to make this happen. And I watched him the day I spoke before the board
About the park.
He had just gotten going. He had just
grant,
gotten,
right?
Yeah, this big major grant. He spoke in Lansing. He fought for this
They
grant.
did an amazing job procuring that grant.
And they got enough money to buy that thing. And I forget the name of the grant. I forget all the details. That's why I kind of hesitated there. But it was a great coup, and he did it with strength. They tried to pass a millage for the matching funds or for something to do with this park, and it failed.
And they still
did it.
They still got it. They still did it.
They're figuring out other avenues. They actually I think they kind of looked inward and said, why were we going for a millage? Let's see what we can do within our budget.
Now, I bet if the township and the city would have went to that state of Michigan together, we would be talking about maybe the largest park in Genesee County.
Maybe the largest municipal park.
Which is going to be great for property values, everything.
But instead, there'll be a nice park.
A 100-acre park, and it'll be in the city forever. It'll be like, oh, we live in the township, so that's not our park. The city has a park like that. We have nothing. We have Bicentennial, the poor relation.
On the outskirts of town that doesn't even have a path for all the people who live near it to get to it safely, except in a car. So, of course, we have increased traffic and a dangerous intersection that could be ameliorated by having a path. But that's another thing that this, it's not even listed in the millage, pathways. They're not saying, and we'll put a path between all those apartments and Bicentennial Park like we should have done when we widened the road in the first place. They don't add that. That's not clearly spelled out in this millage they're asking us to pass. And meanwhile, we could be a part
of a 230-acre park that would be a showcase for Genesee County.
I don't get it. It's like they have something against the
showcase
parks.
For Genesee County if we did it right.
And to add insult to injury, John Creasey
issued, a call out like, hey, we're buying this. Hey, community, what would you like to see in this park? And here we sit.
He actually asked his community?
He did.
Oh, my gosh.
He asked for suggestions from the community. I believe in M Live. I don't know if it was on TV. I saw it on Facebook or something, but it was it. He was asking for people to say, I'd love to see this. I want to see this. And you bet they're going to take some of those suggestions if they possibly can, because that's how they operate, not us.
No, but here's the difference. John had a good gauge of his community. He knows what his community wants and needs, and he's responsive to that.
Yes.
He gives them what they want and they need.
Yes.
He understands that parks cost money. It's something that the community, it's part of a community.
Yeah.
All right. And that's the difference. He's seen it. He had a vision. He gave the residents what they wanted. He went and got it, made it happen, even without a millage.
Right.
And their tax base is minuscule compared to the township. But
Exactly.
the difference is he was on board.
Priorities. The difference
He
is
was
priorities.
on board. He was on board. So I see the Grand Lake Township Parks and Rec is hosting what they dub Grand Lake Township University, a 6-week night course on how the government works. Interesting that the Parks and Rec are going to be the ones educating the community on how the government works, when they're also the ones that can't even get the government to do any improvements to our park. Anyhow, tune in next week to Grand Lake Watchdogs. We'll be talking about how to run a township like a bad business, exactly the way the current board is doing.